You wanted a little love on the sly? Then find me a way out of this pig pen. Tomorrow night. You hear? Tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to another bad movie review. This time we are looking at Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory, also known as Werewolf in the Girl's Dormitory, or Ghoul in a Girl's Dormitory. This is an Italian film from 1962, and it runs about 83 minutes. Directed by Paolo Heusch, written by Ernesto Gastaldi, and stars Barbara Lass, Carl Schul, Kurt Lowens, Maurice Marsek, Donatello Murillo, Michaela Rock, and Luciano Pigozzi, also known as Alan Collins. So we start with a man named Julian Olcott arriving at this school, which is a sort of reform school for wayward girls. They've all been convicted of some kind of crime and assigned to this school as like a finishing school, last chance before prison kind of thing. But Dr. Julian Olcott has a mysterious past. He is now only a professor, his medical license lost after some mysterious incident that involved him being charged with a crime and found not guilty, apparently. And through Julian's appearance at the school, we meet several members of the school, including Lenore, who is the sort of secretary to the director. We meet Walter, who is like the groundskeeper kind of guy, sort of a caretaker, all-around handyman sort of person. And he's got a lame arm that does come into play later in the film. That first night that Julian is there, one of the girls goes AWOL to meet with her lover. There's implications that Walter is facilitating young women as prostitutes for somebody, and he appears to be helping this young woman meet with a lover. And although Mary does meet with her lover, things do not go according to plan. Apparently she has been sort of blackmailing this guy because he's been writing her love letters, and she's using those as a sort of extortion to try and get her released somehow from the school, and she wants him to spring her out, but he says it's much more complicated than that, but he can give her gifts and money. Well, once that sort of falls apart and she storms off, she promptly gets murdered by a werewolf. There's a pretty good chase sequence there before she is torn apart by the werewolf, which leads to one of the only goofs in the movie. So if you're looking for some trivia here, while they're examining her body, her eyes do move a little bit. Yeah, it's really subtle. You have to kind of look for it, but her eyes do move just a bit. It's not enough to have to cut it out of the film because I think most people aren't going to see it, but it's there. So she's our first victim in the film. The medical examiner thinks that she was killed by wolves, although she was very obviously strangled, so he's probably the worst medical examiner on the planet. Can't tell strangulation from a wolf attack. Wolves don't strangle people. They don't have thumbs. Walter does try and solicit another young woman to either entertain him or someone else, and this is around the time we find out about Mary's blackmail scheme, and one of the other students, Priscilla, becomes one of our protagonists here. This is the character played by Barbara Lass, and she finds out about the blackmailing as well as a little bit about Dr. Alcott. She sees some paperwork about him and sees that the charge was manslaughter. Through Priscilla, we also find out that there was another witness to the death of Mary, but that person will not reveal who the killer was, which is obviously going to put the witness's life in danger, and the body count slowly grows from there. We find out that the lover is really being cagey about this whole thing, and then his wife gets murdered. It becomes a whole fiasco. You think you know who killed the wife, but do you really? And then Priscilla is attacked on the grounds, and it's a little unclear who her attacker was, so the werewolf tries to claim a second victim and ends up getting bit in the process by a dog. We find out that dogs don't really like werewolves or wolves, according to the mythology of this story. We also find out the truth of what happened with Julian and how he has been researching a very esoteric topic that seems to play a major part in this film near the end. We don't actually find out who the werewolf is for a little over an hour. They frame it pretty well as to who it could be and who it could not be, but you don't really know until the end. I guessed it fairly early on, but I've seen a lot of movies over the years, and I was only about 90% sure. They do a really good job of some false leads and misdirects, and it's because of Julian's research that somebody else gets killed by almost accident. So we end up with a body count of about 5 plus 2 dogs. I didn't count the dogs because, well, I wasn't really sure. One of them was dead for a while, and I generally don't count animals in the body counts. There's no nudity in this film at all. There is a little bit of eroticism with women being sultry, but there's no nudity. If there's a version with nudity, I would actually be a little surprised. So while this is an Italian-made movie, the dubbing is really well done. I couldn't find any credits for who the voice actors were, but they did a pretty good job. Now, some of these actors are actually pretty recognizable. Maurice Marsac, who plays Alfred, he was actually in quite a few films. He was in The Jerk and a lot of TV appearances. So if you watched a lot of TV in the 70s and 80s, you probably saw him on Wonder Woman or The A-Team, Barnaby Jones, New Avengers. He was on a ton of stuff, including Biotic Woman. And he seems to play a lot of waiters, so he's been around. Pretty recognizable actor. Same with Kurt Loewens. Lots of TV appearances around the world, and including the film Mandroid and Necronomicon Book of the Dead. So another recognizable person that is going to look a little familiar if somewhat younger. But the most recognizable was probably Luciano Pagozzi, aka Alan Collins. I recognized him from Your Hunter of the Future, but he has been in a bunch of B movies in the 80s and the 70s. Some TV stuff, but mostly B movies and bit parts. Very recognizable guy. Very good career too. But out of everybody, Maurice Marsac seems to have the best career with over 200 credits. Barbara Lass did a pretty good job as Priscilla. She's probably best known for being the wife of Roman Polanski for a short period when she was 19 or so. Carl Schell is probably best known for Escape from East Berlin, and many of the others had pretty reasonable resumes as well for being working actors and actresses. So there's a lot of talent in this movie, and it shows. The film is very fast-paced. It doesn't really slow down. It's always doing something. There's always beneficial dialogue, and you have a lot more plot involving the affair between one of the professors and the girl Mary that ultimately led to her death. And the werewolf is almost a subplot within the film. So the werewolf actually only kills like one person and tries to kill somebody else. The other characters that die are all dead through various other means. So this really isn't a werewolf-focused movie. The werewolf is part of the driving plot because it's there and kind of the catalyst for all of this, but it's really more about all of these people trying to either cover up or uncover this love affair between a student and a professor. I thought it was interestingly done that way, where the werewolf is actually almost a secondary character. We don't even find out who the werewolf is until the last 15 or 16 minutes of the film, and I thought it was handled pretty well. The makeup effects are a little hit and miss. During the first kill, they look really cheap, but you don't really notice them. But later in the film, when you get good close-ups of the face, the makeup's not too bad. And it does a fairly good job of disguising the character overall. You can still kind of tell who it is, but not really at the same time. So I was pretty impressed with this movie. I didn't think it was going to be this good when I watched it. It's got kind of a goofy title, and I think if it had been remade in the 90s, there would have been way more nudity. Now, there is a movie that is similarly named. There's Werewolf in a Girls Sorority in 2013, but it's a different movie entirely. So I am going to recommend this movie. It's not actually a werewolf movie. It has a werewolf in it, but that is not the driving force here. And I thought it was actually a pretty smartly written movie. The dubbing is really well done, and it has some pretty memorable lines. So if you have an hour and a half to kill on a pseudo werewolf film, this one was pretty good. And the fact that it's in black and white, I think, is a little bit of a detraction, but it also hides a lot of the potential flaws in the makeup. So just because it's in black and white, don't rule it out. It's got a really interesting story with some pretty decent acting and a lot of twists and turns that kind of keep you guessing as to who actually is the killer. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one.